Have you ever had one of those moments when in just one day you lost your husband, lost your home, and the entire world turned its back on you? It was a cold and rainy day. That woman stood still in front of her husband's memorial photo, her hair soaking wet, eyes swollen from crying, clutching her daughter's tiny hand. There was no one left for them, no family, no comfort, only a bottomless pit of loss slowly gnawing away at her heart. But the worst part, it did not end there. When they returned to what used to be their home, a place once filled with laughter, shared dinners, and dreams of a little family, what they found was a locked door. And no, it was not because they forgot the key, it was because someone inside had changed the lock. A cold mother-in-law cracked the door open. Behind her, the husband's younger sister was rearranging furniture as if they were the rightful owners and the widow was just a stranger. They had taken over the house. No questions asked. No waiting. They had moved in like Ethan's death. Her husband, her daughter's father, was simply an opportunity to snatch it all away. The curtains were replaced. The couch changed color. The wedding photo, gone. Everything that had once belonged to Rachel and Ava, wiped clean. This was more than just a slap in the face. It was betrayal, cold and calculated. And then came the sentence like a knife straight into her heart. This house is under Ethan's name. There's no will. You have no legal rights here anymore. No compassion, not a moment of hesitation. Just commands and a look filled with contempt. Rachel and her daughter were thrown out into the rain, into heartbreak, into a hopelessness that had no name. What do you see in this story? A woman who lost her husband, then her home, and her right to fairness? Or do you see the harsh truth that in your weakest hour, it is not the enemies, but the family that can be the first to turn against you? If you've ever had something taken from you, something that should have been yours, leave a comment below. Say I refuse to accept injustice, or I will rise and protect what I treasure. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. Stories like this, full of pain lessons and strength, are not just to be watched. They are meant to be shared, because we are not just watching a video, we are building a community of those who refuse to back down. In the darkest hour of despair, sometimes the light does not come from afar, but from an elderly neighbor with kind eyes and a door that opens at just the right moment. When Rachel and Ava had nowhere left to go, Mrs. Bennett, the woman who had lived next door for years, welcomed them in. In her old tiny room, she laid out blankets for the mother and child, placed a warm cup of tea in Rachel's hands, and whispered, "You're not crazy. You didn't do anything wrong. Your mother-in-law, she planned this a long time ago." Those words were like a knock on the door of truth. Rachel froze. Mrs. Bennett shared that just a few days before Ethan passed away, she had seen a moving truck outside. Diana had brought in boxes new furniture, as if she had known exactly what was coming. A mother who rushed in before her son had even died was not grieving. She was preparing for a takeover. That was when Rachel realized this was not a misunderstanding. It had all been planned. And Ethan's death was just the closing line of the first act in their play to seize control. She looked at her daughter Ava, now asleep, and her heart ached. She could not let her child grow up in injustice. She could not let Ethan's memory be buried beneath lies. Rachel did not have much left, but she had one old friend, Angela. They had studied law together in college, and now Angela was a lawyer in the city. With trembling hands, Rachel made the call. Angela did not ask many questions. She simply said, "Send me every document you have. We will review everything. Just remember, if your name appears on any ownership papers, or if there is a legal contract, you still have rights." For the first time in days, Rachel heard the words, "You have rights." She started to remember. Ethan had once mentioned something about refinancing the house. There was a time they signed paperwork together. There was an insurance policy, and maybe a paper Ethan had hidden in the safe. Hope sparked, but it came with fear. Where were those documents now? She could not ask, and Diana would never give them back. there was only one way. Another rainy night came, but this time Rachel did not stand outside the door. She returned to what had once been her home, where every wall and every staircase held memories of Ava's childhood and Ethan's love. She slipped in through the back door. The old lock had not yet been replaced. In the dark study, she opened drawers, flipped through files, heart pounding, and then she found it. A post-nuptial agreement, signed by Ethan, notarized, with one clear line. In the event of death, all assets are to be transferred to Rachel Monroe. She sank to the floor paper in hand, tears falling, not out of sorrow, but because it confirmed Ethan had trusted her, had protected her even after death. There were other papers too, a mortgage contract with her listed as co-owner, an insurance policy naming her as the sole beneficiary, tax documents with both names on the title, all of it truth. Proof. A response to what Diana had tried to steal. The next morning, Rachel came back, but this time she did not bow her head. She met Diana right in the entryway, held up the papers, looked her in the eye, and said, "I have rights, I have proof, and I will not let you destroy Ethan's memory or Ava's future." Diana sneered. "I will sue you. I have money. I will prove Ethan was not of sound mind when he signed those papers." But Rachel no longer trembled. She was no longer the woman thrown out into the rain. She replied, "Then I will see you in court." And with that, Rachel and her lawyer friend began building a legal case strong enough to flip the game on its head. There are nights when silence speaks louder than words, and there are returns made in quiet that mark the beginning of a full-blown uprising. After her confrontation with Diana, Rachel did not sit still. She understood only the truth, solid and sharp, like a blade could cut through the web of lies Diana had spun. She went back to Angela, her friend now her legal ally. The two women sat in Mrs. Bennet's small living room. Spread across the table were all the documents Rachel had secretly retrieved, the notarized post-nuptial agreement, the mortgage contract, the insurance policy. Angela flipped through each page, underlining, cross-referencing, analyzing like she was defusing a bomb. Not because she had doubts, but because she knew even the smallest crack would give someone like Diana a chance to destroy everything. And then Rachel revealed something that made Angela look up sharply. "I remember Ethan wrote me a letter, but I never had the courage to read it. The old envelope lay inside a keepsake box, its paper yellowed by time." Rachel held it with both hands, as gently as if it might tear. In the stillness of the room, the sound of the envelope opening was like a sigh from the past. Her voice trembled as she read, "If one day I am no longer here, you have to be strong. I know my mother. She won't accept losing control. I've seen it coming for a long time, but I never wanted you to carry the pain, so I made preparations. I made sure this house, Ava's future everything, will be in your hands." Angela looked at Rachel not as an old friend anymore, but as a fellow warrior. She said quietly, "We are not just going to win, we're going to make them pay for dishonoring Ethan like this." From that moment on, the comeback campaign was officially in motion. Angela guided Rachel step by step through gathering all the legal puzzle pieces. The mortgage refinancing contract Rachel had signed to save the house. Bank statements showing Rachel had been paying the mortgage while Ethan was ill. The fully notarized post-nuptial agreement with dates and details. And most importantly, the handwritten letter which clearly showed Ethan's intent, even in the absence of a formal will. But they did not stop there. Angela advised Rachel to compile every controlling act Diana had ever imposed on the couple, from financial interference to emotional manipulation to psychological pressure. They started looking for witnesses. Mrs. Bennet wrote a full statement describing the day she saw a moving truck arrive before Ethan had even passed. A bank employee who had met Ethan during the refinancing process confirmed he was fully coherent, spoke clearly, and made all decisions himself. They even contacted the notary public, who had handled the asset transfer paperwork, and received confirmation that the entire process was legal voluntary and free from coercion. Meanwhile, Diana launched a counterattack. She filed a lawsuit against Rachel, accusing her of forging documents, manipulating Ethan while he was terminally ill, emotionally coercing him to gain access to assets. The lawsuit spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. People gossiped. Some sided with Rachel. Others clung to the public image of Lady Diana, the grieving mother who had worn a polite mask for years. Rachel and Ava had to move into a budget hotel. Their small savings began to run dry. The room was cramped, the light dim, but Rachel did not complain. She simply watched Ava studying by the window, the girl's hair glowing under the yellow streetlight, and she knew this battle was not just for the house. It was for her daughter's future. Angela put a hand on Rachel's shoulder. The trial is in a few weeks, but today, we already have everything we need. Rachel did not respond. She just looked out the window at a city still bustling, still indifferent, and whispered, "I am not fighting for the property. I'm fighting so Ethan is never betrayed again." If you have ever been falsely accused, if you have ever had to prove the truth to people who refuse to hear it, drop a comment below. Say the truth will always find its way, or I will not let anyone twist my reality. And remember to hit subscribe if you want to walk with Rachel until the very end, because in the next chapter, the courtroom doors will open and justice will be decided by statements, documents, and the voice of a witness no one saw coming. Sometimes the scariest part is not the loss itself, but standing up after that loss to protect what is slowly being erased. A few weeks before the trial, every day felt like time being torn apart. Rachel lived like a temporary guest in her own life. A temporary room, temporary meals, restless sleep in a strange bed. But every morning she reminded herself, I am not suing for the assets. I am going to court to defend our dignity, for Ethan, for Ava, and for myself. Angela, her lawyer friend, worked as if exhaustion did not exist. They reviewed every word, every signature. The case file grew thicker, like a shield ready to protect Rachel from the storm ahead. Diana, on the other hand, played the public, like a violin appearing as the grieving mother victim of a heartless daughter-in-law. Local newspapers and a few gossip blogs ran articles with dramatic headlines, "The young widow angel" or "Opportunist people love a scandal." But the truth rarely gets a front row seat. Rachel remained silent. She knew responding to lies only gives them power. She saved her energy for the one place that mattered, the courtroom. The night before the trial, Ava came down with a fever. Rachel sat by her bedside, wiping her forehead gently, heart torn in two. Being a mother does not come with perfect timing. Sometimes you must step onto the battlefield, even when your heart wants nothing more than to stay beside your child. Angela suggested a delay, but Rachel shook her head. If I don't show up tomorrow, then I'll have nothing to leave for Ava. I don't want her to grow up remembering a mother who gave up. I want her to know her mum fought to the very end. She was not saying it to prove anything. It was a promise sent to the future. The next morning, it was not raining, but the sky was grey and cold, like a quiet warning. The courtroom was not crowded, but every eye was on Rachel, the woman standing alone against her late husband's entire family. Sitting beside her was Angela, sharp-eyed and steady, holding the thick file they had built together over long sleepless nights. Across the aisle, Diana arrived in a dark outfit, her face calm, almost smug. Next to her stood her attorney, a seasoned man with salt and pepper hair, known for brutal lawsuits and zero mercy. The judge entered, an older man, stern-faced eyes, scanning everything. He struck the gavel. The trial began. Diana's lawyer opened with a long, dramatic speech painting Ethan as a vulnerable man, manipulated and mentally unfit to make financial decisions. He labeled Rachel a master manipulator, someone who preyed on Ethan's weakness to steal property and assets. Rachel showed no reaction. She stared straight ahead, her face calm, as if she had heard too many lies to be shocked anymore. Then came Angela's turn. She stood. Her voice was firm, steady. We have clear and undeniable proof that Ethan Monroe, while alive, was of sound mind and made his financial decisions independently and consciously. The documents, the signatures, the witnesses all confirm that he legally and transparently transferred his assets to his wife, Mrs. Rachel Monroe. Angela began calling the witnesses. The bank employee confirmed Ethan spoke clearly and knowingly during refinancing. The notary verified Ethan signed the postnuptial agreement in person with no signs of pressure. Mrs. Bennett testified to seeing Diana move furniture into the house days before Ethan passed away. The courtroom stirred. Diana frowned. She had not expected Rachel to gather so much evidence. She had not imagined the quiet daughter-in-law from the kitchen could flip the entire case with such cold determination. And then Angela played her final card, Ethan's handwritten letter. She read a few lines out loud. The room went still. The judge listened closely, then requested handwriting verification, comparing the letter to bank documents, insurance papers, and personal notes written by Ethan. The conclusion: the letter was authentic. There was no forgery, no doubt. Would justice truly be served? Would Ethan's memory be preserved? Would a witness? No one expected change. The entire outcome. As the judge called for a recess, silence fell like a thick fog. Rachel sat frozen, every muscle in her body tight, not out of fear, but because so many emotions now swirled inside: hope, pain, and a quiet belief that Ethan, wherever he was, had witnessed it all. Angela continued scanning documents, not missing a single word. Across from them, Diana was visibly nervous. The cold, stone-like woman now had beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Her once steady presence was slipping. One by one, the witness testimonies struck like hammers against the wall of control she had built for years. And then, the courtroom doors creaked open. A shaky but clear voice rang out. "Excuse me, I would like to testify." All eyes turned. It was Jocelyn, Ethan's younger sister, the same woman who had stayed silent through everything, the one Diana counted on to remain a quiet ally. Rachel stared in disbelief. Angela raised an eyebrow. Diana froze. Jocelyn walked up to the stand. Her hands trembled. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I cannot stay silent any longer, because Ethan does not deserve this. He was absolutely clear when he set up those documents. I heard him say it myself. If Mom messes with the house after I'm gone, Rachel has to fight, because that house belongs to her and Ava." The judge locked eyes with Jocelyn. "Do you confirm that Ethan Monroe was mentally sound and not coerced when he signed the asset transfer documents?" Jocelyn nodded, then broke down. "My brother was a direct man, and he loved Rachel. He loved her enough to prepare everything so that when he was gone, no one could mistreat his wife and daughter." A deep silence blanketed the courtroom. Diana still refused to turn around, but her shoulders visibly trembled. A few minutes later, the judge returned. His face was composed, yet heavy with finality. He opened the folder in front of him, looked at both sides, and then announced, "After reviewing all legal documents, witness testimonies, and presented evidence, I hereby declare Rachel Monroe the legal heir to the estate of Ethan Monroe. All documents are valid, verified, and supported by direct testimony. All claims from the plaintiff, Mrs. Diana Monroe, are dismissed." Angela gently squeezed Rachel's hand, but Rachel did not cry. She only bowed her head as if to whisper to someone no longer present, "I kept my promise." "Ethan." Diana stood, said nothing, and walked out in silence. No one stopped her. No one followed. She had not just lost the property, she had lost the truth. It no longer belonged to her. Rachel and Ava returned to the house that once was a battlefield. There were no fireworks, no roses, just a quiet home. But the silence now was peaceful, free from lies, free from conflict. Rachel slowly restored each room. She did not rehang the wedding photo. She did not keep many of Ethan's old things. There was only one item she placed in the most sacred spot, the handwritten letter, because sometimes the greatest legacy is a promise kept. Ava ran barefoot through the living room, laughing, singing. For the first time in so long, a child's laughter filled that home again. And Rachel knew not everyone gets justice, but those who fight for the truth will always find freedom, because justice does not come on its own. It needs someone to carry the flame. And you are part of that light. No one knows what happens after a legal battle. There are winners, there are losers. But for Rachel, she never called it victory. She called it closure. A door closed, not the door to her home, but the door to her pain. A circle completed, so no one would ever have to go back to those dark days, asking why. On a quiet morning, Rachel opened all the windows. Sunlight streamed in, catching the cracks in the walls. Cracks Ethan once promised to fix. She did not cover them. She let them stay as imperfect memories, but real ones. She rearranged the furniture, placed a few potted plants. Each one had a name: peace, strength, and Ava the biggest pot. Rachel no longer cried as much, but when she stood before Ethan's photo, she still whispered, "Thank you for believing in me. I kept your word." Ava was still just a child. She did not understand all that had happened, but she knew her mother was strong. And one day when she grows up, when she reads the court files, when she hears the story twisted so many times before it will be clear, the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always rise. And Diana, no one ever saw her again in that neighborhood. She moved away, quietly, without a word. But Rachel held no grudge. She understood sometimes the most broken people are the ones who hurt others, but understanding does not mean forgiving. She simply chose to let go, because the greatest act of forgiveness is not for others, but to free yourself to move on. Rachel's story is the story of millions out there, people who had what was theirs taken away, not through violence, but through coldness, manipulation, and betrayal by those closest to them. If you are in that place, if you have ever stayed silent, endured, or looked the other way, remember, you are not small, you are not weak, you just have not stood up yet. But when you do, everything begins to shift. Leave a message to yourself in the comments. Write something you want to remind yourself every day. For example, I will not let anyone take my voice away. I deserve fairness. I will protect what is sacred with all my heart and willpower. And if this story moved you, share this video with someone who might need a bit of light. They might be fighting quietly alone. They might just need to know they are not alone. And do not forget to hit subscribe if you want to follow more stories like this, where the truth is told, where even the smallest voice carries the power to awaken the soul. We are not just watching a story, we are reliving the emotion and restoring belief together. See you in the next video, where a new story unfolds and the light will find its way to those who do not give up.